Welcome to Ritual and Remedy RX. Drum of the earth, breath of the body, spirit awakening with Dr. Janelle Clayton. Medicine flows through bone and breath, the rules and rhythm. Remember your body, remember your medicine, remember who you are. Ritual and Remedy RX, where healing becomes ceremony.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a special episode with Ceylon. She is with Microbiome Labs. She's also a functional medicine nutritionist that specializes in gut health. And today we're going to talk about a topic that she's really passionate about, I'm really passionate about, and it's about women's health, hormones, fertility, and the microbiome. Hi, Ceylon.
Hi, Dr. Janelle. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So tell me a little bit about what you do and how you got interested in gut health and microbiome health.
Yeah, so I am a nutritionist. I specialize in gut health, and I think just how I got interested in gut health is really how many people struggle with it. And I think it's a very common thing to hear, hey, I'm bloated, I'm bloated all the time, or I have acid reflux or other bowel issues that might come up. And I just feel that it's kind of a taboo, still, even with all the holistic health in this world now, it's still kind of taboo to talk about. And I really want to kind of break, that taboo and help people. And so I found, a lot of passion in it that way, and also just my own struggles with gut health. But once you start researching gut health, you understand that there's many microbiomes, right? Not just the microbiome in your gut. There is a vaginal microbiome, which I hope we get to talk a little bit about today. And there's skin microbiome that plays a big role in skin health, and having that like glow that everyone wants. So yeah, I just think it's fascinating. It's sort of like our invisible organ, is what I like to call it, because you can't see the little bugs, right? The little microbiome bugs. So I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
You bring up a really good point. Everyone's into wellness now because they want to look vibrant and younger, but so much is happening internally. And one of the things that I've really learned from working with you in Microbiome Labs is about how the gut health and vaginal health are connected. Can you talk a little bit about that and why it's important to focus on that for women?
Yeah. Yes. And I feel like this is a topic that is not well talked about, even with physicians, like even between natural and holistic health physicians. I think a lot of people know our gut health being like, oh, gut health is important for digestion, but it's so much more than that. And it's sort of the foundation and the center where all of our bacteria, both good and bad, are kind of housed. And that actually can affect other microbiomes. So we have as women, a vaginal microbiome that plays a really big role in reproductive health and fertility and hormonal health. And they are connected. They're not two separate microbiomes. So they're connected to gut health. So having, let's say, an infection in your gut, like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO, that's a big one that's kind of going around the internet right now, that can affect vaginal health. And so I just think, yeah, it's a very important topic. They are connected, and just, yeah, understanding how your gut health works it'll help you to understand how your vaginal health is. Yeah.
You know, people talk a lot about like BV or yeast infections or even if they're sexually active, getting things from their partner. But even if they're not, people are not sexually active or wherever they are kind of in their cycle, what are some common signs that you have an imbalanced vaginal microbiome?
Yeah, so signs of an imbalanced microbiome. Well, first we have to understand what a balanced microbiome is. And it's for the vaginal microbiome, we really want to see one species. It's called lactobacillus. That is the species type of bacteria that's very, very healthy. It actually produces a lot of acid, which is great because we want the vaginal canal to be very acidic. It'll help protect the vaginal canal, especially if a woman is sexually active, right? Now, that is what we want to see in the vaginal canal for a healthy mucosal lining and healthy reproductive organs. When we get in an imbalance going, so we have other types of bacteria that are not lactobacillus in there, like Gardnerella is a really common one that can be found in BV or bacterial vaginosis, and other types of bacteria, we get a loss of these lactobacillus species. And what happens is usually an unpleasant odor, burning or itching sensations, or even pain with urination or sexual intercourse. So those are all signs that there could be dysbiosis happening, and testing is really important in that case.
Wow, that's amazing. I think like even going through, chiropractic school and being a woman and being in healthcare, these are like topics that you like you mentioned, people don't really talk about.
No,
And you really don't realize anything's wrong until something goes really wrong. Um,
exactly.
one of the things that's happening a lot right now is people are talking a lot about hormones, perimenopause, hormonal shifts that happen just as we age as women. Um, and really the importance of taking care of the internal environment with those hormonal shifts. It's like, if the hormonal shifts, everything gets exposed, like the underlying condition. So, what advice would you have for someone that's like going through perimenopause, menopause, and they're noticing maybe they haven't taken the best care of their probiotics and microbiome for their gut and for their vagina?
Yeah, my best advice is actually something that not a lot of people know about, and that is a holistic view on their vaginal microbiome. It's actually a test. So I work for a company, I think you said this in the beginning, Microbiome Labs, and we specialize in both lab testing for the gut and the vaginal canal. We use whole genome sequencing, which is very accurate and very detailed when it comes to microbiome testing. We also specialize in probiotics for the gut, vaginal canal, skin, and other things. Um, so yeah, having this vaginal test would be really important when you're going through kind of a transition like that in hormonally in your life, just to make sure that everything's okay and in balance, or if you are experiencing symptoms, like what is out of balance. So the vaginal microbiome test we have is called Vaginal Biome FX, and it's a swab test. It's very easy, very simple, and so life-changing because it can come back with a test result that tells you which community state type your vaginal microbiome is in. And that means how healthy or resilient, I should say, is your vaginal microbiome? Which lactobacillus species is there a dominance of, or maybe there's a loss of those lactobacillus species, like we talked about before, which can put you at risk for things like PCOS, endometriosis, a woman maybe in her younger years, more like infertility and reoccurrent pregnancy loss. But also going into menopause, it can really exacerbate some symptoms. So, yeah, my advice there would be to get a vaginal microbiome test, see what community state type you're in, and if necessary, if the results come back where there is dysbiosis, getting on a vaginal probiotic. It can be just, like I said, really life-changing going through those stages of life. Yeah.
One of the questions a lot of my patients ask me, even though I sell microbiome products and that's how also we're connected, they'll say, "Oh, well, I'll just, go to the drugstore. I'll just go to like the health food store and grab one from the fridge." And I'm like, not all probiotics are created equal. Um, So can you speak to why it's important to take this like a certain type of probiotic that really targets um these imbalances and is a bit more resilient than just maybe something that you pick up at the drugstore?
Yeah, something that a probiotic that's found at like the drugstore or even like Costco, Whole Foods, some reputable places like that may not be able to survive what we call like the gastric journey or digestion. So a lot of probiotics, and the reason you have to refrigerate them is because they die just at room temperature. And it's kind of funny because I always say, well, they die at room temperature, but your body is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit ish, right? So as soon as they get to your body, they're at high risk. And when they die, they're really not doing their purpose, so to speak, in the body, which is recolonizing the microbiomes. So it's really, really important to find a probiotic that has been well researched, well vetted, and that has very specific strains for what you need it for. So for example, what I mean by that is if you're taking a vaginal probiotic, you want one that has strains that are in a healthy community state type. So, for example, community state type 1, which is a very healthy, very resilient community state type in the vaginal microbiome, has a lot of Lactobacillus crispatus. That is the strain type, the species that's very healthy. We put that in our vaginal probiotic. It's called Vaginal Balance, and it includes that along with a few others in healthy community state types. And you actually do take the product orally. So you swallow it orally, and it does travel through the digestive system, and it survives that journey. And it goes all the way from literally mouth all the way down to the end of your colon and will travel over to the vaginal canal where it colonizes. Those strains prefer the vaginal canal. That's their preferred place to colonize. So it takes about 7 days to notice improvement, but I say that's very quick, compared to some stuff. So yeah, you've really got to do your research with whatever supplement or probiotic you're taking and make sure that it's surviving gastric acids and it's well researched. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you some myth or truth rapid fire questions about the gut health. And these are things I've seen on, online or videos where people have been asking, in office or, just misconceptions. So I think this will be really fun for our listeners. And let's see what your answers are. So the first myth or truth, bloating after every meal is normal.
Myth. Yeah, myth. And am I allowed to explain myself? Sorry.
Yes, please explain.
Okay. Yeah, a little bloating is normal after each meal, but it should be so slight that you really don't notice it. The kind of bloating that I see a lot of my clients struggle with is pretty strong, right? It's pushing up against your belt line. It's uncomfortable. That is not normal.
Okay. Myth or truth, reoccurring yeast infections are always caused by hygiene issues.
Oh my gosh, myth. Myth, yeah, reoccurring yeast infections are a result of vaginal dysbiosis, which is a result of a microbiome issue. So even your exposure to yeast and other pathogenic things should not cause an infection. We really want a resilient vaginal microbiome. So most of the causes behind reoccurring yeast infections are things like being on antibiotics, having an unhealthy diet, having high stress or chronic stress in your life. And yeah, that takes balancing the vaginal microbiome. So
All right. Okay, myth or truth, antibiotics can permanently disrupt the microbiome.
truth. However, the research shows about 2 years. So a single dose of antibiotics takes about a 2 year hit on your microbiome. It can have permanent effects if someone is not properly treating or addressing their microbiome during and after antibiotics. So it can have sustained effects. Yeah.
Okay, myth or truth, you touched on this, but myth or truth, vaginal health and gut health are deeply connected.
Oh, truth. Absolutely truth. Yep. There is I know, a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but to to connect the two, really, if you think about it, the vaginal microbiome is anatomically, the vaginal canal is anatomically very close to the end of your colon. So bacteria does travel. That is a natural thing. That is a healthy thing. A lot of people think it's a hygiene issue if there is bacteria transfer between the vaginal canal. And the end of your colon or your rectum, and that is not true. It's a very natural and healthy thing. But it's a reason to keep a very, very healthy gut, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first time I heard that the bacteria crawl
Yeah.
from one end to the other, I was like, what? But I mean, can they not? And it's true. Like they're doing their
Yeah.
thing. It's supposed to be that in the environment there.
Yep.
And in
It's
fact,
one long road.
one
Yep.
long road. And in
Yep.
fact, when you give birth, that first gut
Exposure.
health, the first gut and microbiomes you're getting are from
The
your
mom.
mom.
Yep. Exactly. That's where the baby gets its Kickstarter for its microbiome is from the mom. Yep.
That's why we've seen a lot of C-section babies. Sometimes they already have gut health issues, early on too.
Yeah, it's so important. We call it the maternal fetal microbiome transfer. It's so important to know that. It doesn't mean that if a C-section at birth happens that, they're doomed. Of course, there's many ways to get microbiome exposure,
Mm.
especially for the first 2 to 3 years, even through breastfeeding. But there is that kind of Kickstarter that they can get for their immune system when the baby is born vaginally. So they get microbes from their mom's vaginal canal and also, yeah, their mother's gut, her rectum through that birth process.
Here's another good one. Myth or truth? Nervous system regulation is essential for healing.
Oh my gosh, truth. Yes, nervous system regulation. I like to call it resilience or regulation. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff out there of like how to reduce stress. And I really don't think that is possible for a lot
Yeah.
of women, a lot of situations. I really think if we can find a regulation, how do we come back from a stressful moment? How do we regulate our nervous systems again? Oh, yeah, that will affect our overall health, even our microbiome. It changes the environment that the bacteria can live in, just being in a high stress state. So, learning to practice regulation is very important.
Okay, myth or truth? Detoxing should involve extreme cleanses or restrictions.
Myth. Myth. Detoxing should rarely create or be, this extreme cleanse, which can really strip our microbiomes or our bodies, depending on what type of cleanse it is. I am not a fan of extreme dieting or extreme cleanses. That's not the way that I know the body. Detoxification can be a very gentle process. It can also be tougher, but it can be a very gentle process, as simple as taking like an immunoglobulin product or a binder, taking it as a supplement, which helps to bind toxins in your gut so that they don't reabsorb in your system. That is a very gentle way to detox. Yeah.
Mm, I love that. And I've taken some of the things that you're talking about. Ceylon also recommended for me, so I've had some really amazing glow ups and
Yeah.
balancing out personally. Even from us just seeing each other a year ago, I know you noticed I look different.
Yes, exactly. You're glowing from the inside out.
The inside out. So I've been taking my gut health very seriously and my vaginal health.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
these things do work. But yeah, I think a lot of times people want something that's 30 days, 60 days, and it's really a commitment to a pretty much a lifestyle overhaul.
It is, yeah. The 30-day cleanse or the 60-day cleanse, those can be great Kickstarters, but again, I'm not a fan of big cleanses or extreme cleanses. I really do think that it's like a stepwise, it takes, like you
Hmm.
said, like a year, right? That it's
Yeah.
been a while since we've done one of these podcasts. So like even in 1 year, just doing very small changes for your health. Yeah.
Here's our last one. Myth or truth? Healing the microbiome can impact your mood and your mental health.
Oh my gosh, truth. Truth. Healing the microbiome can impact every area of your health. And this is why I like to call it, the invisible organ, because you can't really see your microbiome. The bugs are so small. But it is the center of our immune system. It's the place where food is first exposed to, and these microbes do the job of helping to break down food and seeing like, hey, what's good for our system? What do we want to get rid of? And just being the front lines of our body like that, it is affecting our cardiovascular health, our detoxification, our vaginal health, hormonal health, cognition being a big one. So mood. There are probiotics for just about every health system for this very reason. So it is much more than gut health. Yeah.
It's amazing. And you really spoke to the holistic part of this type of healing. So since our podcast is called Ritual and Remedy, I'm going to ask you, what are your rituals and what are your remedies?
Yeah.
What do you do to help that helps you feel grounded and healthy? And what's your remedies?
Yeah. So rituals for myself, is that what you're,
What's your daily, like your morning ritual, your daily
yeah.
rituals, things you just can't go without for your wellness journey?
Yeah. So my morning ritual is probably the most important for my health. I love mornings and I always have these things. So I'm always starting the morning before coffee with a full glass of water. And this is to hydrate myself. And I feel so much better when I do this before coffee because, as we know, coffee can be kind of dehydrating. And the other reason is remember that if we've been sleeping, let's say 6 hours, or 8 hours, 10 hours, right? That's a long time without water. And so that first thing that you drink is really, really important for it to be hydrating. So I do water. Sometimes I'll do electrolytes in it. But just so I can remember every morning, I grab a glass of water, drink it, I make my coffee, and I'm really into nervous system regulation these days. I am pregnant, and so this has been really important in my life where healing really means for me just where can I find that regulation and that resilience, not necessarily stress reduction, right? I think that word is, and that term is so overused, but for me, that regulation means meditation, and I respond really well to, I have found gratitude meditations, affirmations, and even like some outward spoken like chanting or affirmations. For me, it just helps me to stay focused in the meditation because sometimes I go to sit and I'm like, oh my gosh, my brain is going crazy. How do people meditate? But when I'm speaking out loud, I just feel like it brings a lot of focus and grounding. So that I have to do every morning. And then I usually do some sort of movement or yoga right after or before the meditation. Um, and it just really depends on the morning. But that whole water, coffee, meditation, and movement, it has to happen. It grounds me. It makes me feel like I have sort of a base point in my day before starting it. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your personal tips and rituals and remedies. And also, thank you so much for being here. And if
Thanks
people
for
wanted to
having
find
me.
you or work with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Embody by Ceylon. So it's INBODY, Embody by Ceylon. I also have a website, www.embodybyceylon.com. You can find me there. To reach me with Microbiome Labs, you can go to www.microbiomelabs.com, and you will be able to see all of the products we offer, the vaginal probiotic, the pregnancy probiotic that we have, the vaginal test, and you can reach out from there. So thank you so much for having me, Dr.
For
Janelle.
being here. All right, everyone, that's the end of our podcast for today. Thanks for being part of Ritual and Remedy. We'll see you next time.
Ritual and Remedy RX, where healing becomes ceremony. Earth below, sky above, medicine rising through my blood, where science meets spirit and healing becomes real. Body awaken, spirit alive, the medicine lives inside. Ritual is a space for transformation, for truth, for embodied wisdom.